3, 2, 1. Hi there. I'm Mindy Jensen.
And I'm Carl Jensen.
And this is the Mindy
And Carl.
on Money podcast. You were really slow on that one. Let's try that again. This is the Mindy.
And Carl.
Are you awake today?
What?
This is the Mindy and Carl on Money podcast, where we talk about what happens after you reach financial independence.
I can't believe you stole my line.
Well, I can't believe you were so slow about it.
Okay. Well, why do we call this show Mindy on Money, which I think I want to change the name after this conversation.
Just Mindy on Money, not Mindy and Carl on Money anymore?
No, I might want to get rid of the Mindy part.
Wow. All right. So we call this show Mindy on Money because your best friend Mindy Jensen tells you everything you need to know about life after financial independence. Sounds a little bit pretentious, don't you think?
That sounds way pretentious. Way pretentious.
Way pretentious. All right. Well, on this episode of the Mindy
And Carl.
on Money podcast, Carl is slow, and Carl and I are going to talk about getting your spouse on board.
Ooh, this is a hard conversation. Anyway, before we get started with this very difficult conversation, let's take a quick break. Today's episode is sponsored by us. What? How can we sponsor our own episode?
Easy. It's my show. We can sponsor the show, Carl, because it's my show and I get to do whatever I want. When it comes to the Mindy on Money podcast, I am the boss. You are my sidekick. So I say we are sponsoring this episode. What I would like for our listeners to do is to subscribe to this episode, which you can do at mindyonmoney.com/subscribe. Because while the show usually airs on Wednesdays, every once in a while we have a bonus episode and we don't want you to miss it.
Or sometimes I forget to put in the correct date or the date at all, and then it doesn't get published at all, and then it comes out the next day.
Yes. Well, you know, computers are hard. Everybody knows that.
They are hard.
All right. So Carl and I talk to people about financial independence all the time. And one of the questions that we hear really frequently, probably the number 2 question besides how do you pay for health insurance, which is a whole different conversation, is I just discovered financial independence. I'm really excited about it, but my spouse isn't on board. My partner isn't on board. How do I get them on board? What do I do?
Ooh, this is a big conversation, but before we get started, I feel like there is some unfinished business we have to clean up from last week. In last week's episode, we talked about Mr. 500, not to be confused with me, Mr. 1500. That's the name of my blog, 1500 Days. Anyway, it was revealed, and this was news to me and the audience, that you paid $500 when you were a waitress working at Baker Square to pay for your boyfriend's rent. I'm kind of curious, this Mr. 500 guy. First, I think he needs a rebrand. 500 sounds too close to Mr. 1500. That's weird. Do you think it could be Mr. Pie? I've been rewatching Game of Thrones. There's a character called Hot Pie on there. Ugh, I don't like that at all. What are some good pies? Do you know what his favorite pie was? French silk? That sounds a little bit, yeah, I don't like that one at all
either. I dated
either.
him like 100 years ago. We've been married for 20-something years, and I hadn't dated him for years when I met you. I don't remember what his favorite pie is.
Okay, I'm going to stick with Mr. Pie. Do you think Mr. Pie is financially independent? Do you think he's a Mindy on Money fan?
No, I don't think that he's any of those things. I think that he's most likely living paycheck to paycheck in a lot of debt like he was back then. I would hope that he is living a better life than he was back then, but let's just say ambition wasn't his strong suit.
Wow. Well, now I hope he isn't listening. We might get some nasty fan mail. Okay.
Email me, Mindy at mindyonmoney.com. I'm almost guaranteed he's not listening. In fact, I will guarantee he's not listening, so we won't even get an email from him.
Well, let's move on from Mr. Pie. Before we get into... Yeah, deeply uncomfortable. Before we get into the main point of conversation, which is how to convince your partner that financial independence might be a good idea, I think we should review our situation real quick. I learned about financial independence from a Google search that I did in October of 2012. I stumbled upon the Mr. Money Mustache blog, And I immediately knew that financial independence was the right answer for us. I did not like my job at all. And that was a way out of my situation. Of course, I just could have quit that job and found a different one. But why take the easy road when you can take the much more difficult road? Anyway, we immediately moved to a much more affordable area. We sold this big, beautiful 4-bedroom house we had. It was completely done, no work to be done, for $405,000, and moved into an insect-infested home that needed a lot of work for $176,000.
It was ants. It wasn't like roaches.
No, it was ants, but there were many, many, many ants. There were armies of ants.
Is a good word.
Yeah, in that house. It needed a lot of work. It had 2 beds and 1 bath for 4 different people. And the 1 toilet it had, we soon learned was clogged up. But that is a story for a different episode.
Or
we
never.
also yeah, probably never. It's unpleasant. Ask us at Economy. We'll be there.
Don't
Congratulations.
ask me.
Yeah, ask me. We also tightened up our expenses. We reviewed everything we were spending money on, tightened up what we could, and we also made sure we maxed out all of our retirement accounts. But the thing is, we could do this easily because we were both on the same page, and that was so important. If you weren't on the same page, our marriage probably would have ended in divorce because I wasn't happy. You probably would. You may not have been on board with moving to this crappy little house that we eventually bought. And things would have been a lot more difficult. But we were both on the same page, and that made everything easy, right?
Yeah, but can you clarify that you weren't happy at your job? You weren't not happy with me. You're like, we probably would have ended in divorce. I wasn't happy. That sounds like we were going to get a divorce because we were having problems in our marriage.
Oh, no. There were no problems with that. But I'm just saying, if you wanted to live a fancy life in a nice house with nice cars, and then all of a sudden I pivoted and decided I didn't want that. And I'm like, hey, let's make this change overnight. For example, we lived in Douglas County, which I don't know if it still is, but at the time it was the most wealthy county west of the Mississippi River as far as household income, I think. And then we moved to Longmont. Longmont's great, but it's not as fancy as where we came from. And if we weren't on the same page with that, I think it would have been, I know it would have been much more difficult.
Yes.
I'm going to go a little bit off the outline here. Our superpower, what really made us rich, if there's anything you could take from us, is that we, and I especially compliment you for this, are able to live in deep discomfort for periods of time. Like we moved into that crusty house and it had lots of issues. For a while, the toilet did not even work. A short amount of time.
Not for a while, like one evening, and we called the plumber and he came and fixed it. Don't say that we didn't have any plumbing.
Well, it seemed like forever for me because we had just been to the Great American Beer Fest and I'd eaten a lot of Taco Bell. So it seemed like an eternity for me. But no, I'm trying to give you a compliment here. Yeah, we've lived in construction zones for most of our marriage, and a lot of people would not be able to put up with that. And I think it's run its course. We're both kind of sick of that. But that willingness to be uncomfortable is what also made us wealthy. So say you would have liked to live like that, but I didn't, or vice versa. It might have been hard to reconcile those different goals. But we were both on the same page, and that is so critically important for us and for what we've been able to build.
I will agree with you that I am the best wife that you've ever had, best wife you ever will have. That's what I think you said word for word. And I want to speak to the people who aren't in this same situation, who are in a partnership where they want to pursue financial independence, but their partner doesn't. Number one thing that you have to remember is that this is a big change, not only from where you are living right now, but where most of America is living. You're asking your partner to make a giant change with pretty much no context. So your first order of action is to take a step back and not be so forceful about it. It's a great idea, but it does take a little bit of getting used to if it's not your own idea.
I'm going to jump in here. So, for example, if you live large, a big house, 5 cars, coming up in the world, you don't trust nobody.
Oh my goodness. Are you Cypress Hill?
No, but if that is your life, you might have a hard time pivoting to financial independence. I know that was pretty good, right? Maybe if this
Wow.
podcast thing doesn't work out, I have a future career as a rapper.
Yeah, that's the exact thought I was having when you were doing that.
But anyway, yeah, my point is, if you're currently making $250,000 a year and spending $275,000 a year, you're probably going to have to make some big changes. To put it mildly, this is probably going to be unsettling for your partner, and you're going to have to be extremely empathetic. This is a massive, massive, massive life change, and you can't expect someone to present this information and just say, okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm not going to have these things that I used to have. This is going to be a little bit of a compromise, hopefully not too much of one, but things are going to have to change, and your partner may not be on board with that initially.
Yeah. And one of the best ways to make changes that last is by making small changes. So back on episode 10 of the Bigger Pockets Money podcast, Liz Frugalwoods came on to share her money story. And she shared how once she discovered financial independence, she was lucky. Her partner was on board with her. They cut out everything. And then they decided, hey, that was a month of that, and that kind of stunk. I don't miss everything that we cut out, but I definitely miss some things. So they have a really creative way of adding things back in. And it worked out really well for them. I encourage you to go listen to that episode, perhaps with your partner, to talk about the things you could do to start small, the ways that you can remove things from your life that really don't mean that much to you.
Yeah, we have a small list here. We brainstormed for a moment, and these are just some quick and easy ones. Go out to eat less, travel less, or do it cheaper. Maybe keep your travel local. You don't need to go to Greece. There's beautiful things to see in California and Maine. Cut your entertainment expenses. You can watch the NFL game on the TV for free instead of going to the game itself. Plus, football kind of sucks to watch in person anyway. I'd much rather watch it on TV. Cut out some
field is so big, it's hard to see anything.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Plus, you're freezing. It's a horrible experience. Another one, cut out subscriptions. It's so easy to subscribe to stuff these days. Hey, I want Peacock or Apple TV or whatever. I think we have way too many, and we have to reconsider this. So go through all of that and figure out what you can cut out. This next one, we really embraced. Evaluate your insurance every year and do it with an insurance broker. These people work for free because if you sign up with the people they recommend, they get an affiliate payment. So it costs nothing to you. These people are experts, so you give them your whole situation. I've got X house. I want this amount of insurance, this deductible on my cars. I need an umbrella policy, and they will give you the best price. They're so good. Find one in your area. We've got a great one for health insurance. If you happen to be in Colorado, send us an email. And our last tip for the small stuff.
I want to jump in here really quick, Carl, and say that when we reevaluated our insurance on our vehicles and our home, we went from kind of crappy coverage on all of our vehicles and a way lower valuation on our home insurance to a better car insurance policy, much more coverage on our house. I think we went up by like $300,000 or $400,000 in coverage on our house, and got an umbrella policy, all for less than what we were paying just for the home and auto before we requoted. So it was a significant savings when you add up all the coverage that we got, but we were also just paying less out of pocket every year with adding the umbrella policy on top of all that other stuff. So your insurance company does not reward your loyalty by giving you good rates. Don't reward them with your loyalty by staying with them as they jack up your prices every year.
Yes, insurance companies, insurance is the only business model where you get punished for loyalty.
Yeah, and any insurance company who has a problem with that, email Mindy at mindyonmoney.com and I will tell you this in person.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh, yeah.
Our last small tip is increase your 401k or other savings. If you make a lot of money, a 401k might be for you. If you don't make so much money, I would err towards a post-tax thing like a Roth. But we are not financial and people. Call your CFP or whoever
We
you
are
consult.
financial people.
Well,
we are
we
not
are, but
CFPs.
we're not official one. And now we have a list of slightly bigger stuff that you might be able to save a little bit of money on. Our first one is keep your car longer than you want to.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here and say not want to. Keep your car longer than you planned to. Want to is a mindset. And all of these things you should be wanting to do. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to stick with it. And this is something to think about when you're thinking about it from your partner's perspective. If they don't want to do this, it's going to be a battle to get them to do this. Make sure they want to do this. That's your first step.
Yep. This next one is one of my favorites because there is a phrase in here that irks me. This phrase is starter home. When did the dream home of 40 years ago become a starter home of today? Well, it happened when we went from living in an like 8 or 1,000 square foot home like I did as a kid, which was a brand new build, by the way, to like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 square foot homes like we do now. But there's no reason you can't stay in the starter home. It might get a little tight. You might have to be a little bit creative, but you'll save a lot of money, especially if you're locked in at a 3% interest rate or less, like many people are now.
Yeah, stay in your smaller home. Stay in your lower monthly payment home rather than going out and buying a bigger house.
Okay, let's cut here for a second. You've got 4 minutes. Are you going to show up late, or are we going to fit in as much as we can and then stop it and finish it later?
4 minutes. We've got final thoughts. Yeah, I would rather not rush this. So I'm going to hit pause or stop. La, 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 la. That's the Daria theme song, just FYI. La, 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 la. Okay, you can talk.
Okay, where did we leave? Did we finish point 2? We probably did, right?
We did. Did you see? I just said, do you see the bold part?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to start. And now we get to point number 3. This is the most important one. And I actually heard a Leaf physician on fire say this at a conference. We were on a panel together, and someone asked him the very question of how to get their partner on board. So his response was to start at the end and work backwards. In other words, ask your partner what they want out of life in 20 or 30 years, the very long term, what truly makes them happy, and work backwards. And this works because most people, when they think long term, they're probably not going to say a car or a McMansion or something like that. They're going to say they want a happy family, they want to make memories, they want to travel. And it's stuff that might not cost money. It might cost money, travel costs money, but money isn't the center of it. It's not like buying a car or having another material goal. I think if you were to ask people the same thing, but with a shorter time horizon, like what do you want 2 years from now or 5 years from now, they might say something that's more like a car or a house. But long term, most people want the same things for true happiness, and it doesn't really involve money. So start at that end and work backwards. What do you think?
There's a really great example of this in the Playing with Fire documentary. Scott Rickens looks at his wife, who is not on the same page as he is with regards to financial independence. He looks at her and says, "Can you just write down your top 10 favorite things?" And she does. She takes some time to think about it. She does. She presents him this list, and it's a really good bar of dark chocolate, spending time with my family, a really great bottle of wine, like small things. And he points out, on this list of 10 things, you don't have going to the beach, swimming in the ocean, any of that. But we pay a premium to live near the beach, and it's not even in your top 10 favorite things. Maybe we should look at moving. That's a huge amount of money that we're spending that we could change that isn't going to affect our top 10 favorite things. And that particular part of the documentary was so powerful to me because before that, and I have been on the FI path, I was on the FI path before that happened. But before I saw that, I thought, how do you convince someone to think the way that you think? And that's not the right way to frame it in your mind. Start at the end and work backwards. You want this amazing life where you're traveling all the time. How can you get there? You have to work 40 hours a week. Oh, okay. Well, if you remove the 40 hours a week working, then you could travel more. Well, how can you afford that? So then you start thinking backwards how to get to the place where you can travel all the time. And that's to get your finances in order. I love that Leaf had that same thought.
Yeah. And to zoom out a little bit, and I think there's a deeper thought in all of this, and that thought is money means different things to us at different points in life, and we should do different things with it when we're at different points in life. And before I say this, I don't think you should ever compromise or sacrifice the things that are really important to you. Just off the top of my head, if mountain biking or some other sport is critically important to your happiness, you should find a way to do that no matter how much money you have or what your financial position is. But to back up a second, back to my original thought is that if you're 20, saving $10,000 is going to mean a lot more to you than saving $10,000 at 50, because you've got all that time to have it compound. And when you're 50, your time is going to mean a lot more to you than it might have been when you're 20, before you have a family and all these other obligations in life. And I think this is really part of the success of life, learning how to evolve and adapt with money through these different seasons of life. We've been through it because we were frugal all this time, and we had a very hard time. We still have a very hard time not being frugal, even though we don't have to do it anymore. And it's a delicate balance, right? We shouldn't blow money, and we shouldn't be silly with money just because we can. I think you should always, I'll back up a second. You should never lose your appreciation for money, but you also need to value your time when appropriate. You shouldn't spend hours on travel websites trying to find a hotel that might be 10% cheaper, or flying out with 2 connections, or at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're asleep and life is going to suffer.
Flying out 2 connections? Are you looking in a mirror there, mister?
I'm better about it now. I booked our flights for economy today. Let me tell you, the one taking off leaves at noon, gets in like at 5, direct flight. The one coming back leaves at like, I think it leaves at 3 and gets back here like at 5, something like that, because we gained the 2 hours. So you'll be proud of me. It also turns out that those happen to be the cheapest flights. Thank you, Southwest.
Ugh.
But evolve with your money.
Did you choose them because they were the cheapest flights, or did you choose them because they were the most convenient?
I would have paid extra for a direct flight, and for one where we don't have to get up super early, and for one that gets us in there at a decent hour. I don't want to miss the opening party, which who knows, maybe we'll host again, and I don't want to miss out anything on Monday. I also don't want to miss out on my sleep, which I have found is critically important. No one wants to be around cranky Carl.
Nobody wants to be around cranky Carl. That's true.
Or Mad Mindy.
Wow.
So evolve with your money. Realize when saving a little bit more is going to be really important to you, and realize when saving time is more important than the money. It's hard because it takes decades, right, to accumulate a good amount of money to retire, and it's hard to just turn that off. I think the best thing to do would just be to make thoughtful decisions with it all along.
I think it takes about a decade, depending on where you're starting. Once you get to zero net worth, let's say. Once you get to zero net worth, it takes about a decade. And that statement is based on speaking with more than 500 people about their journey to financial independence. One of those people that I have spoken to on several occasions is my friend Kevin. I call him Kevin with the rock star hair. If you have been to a FI event in person, you've probably seen him. He is so awesome. But he talks about 3 different phases of retirement. There's the beginning of retirement where you have the go-go years. The middle of retirement is the slow go years, and the end of retirement is the no go years. So start thinking about what you want to do during your go years and your slow go years, and how you want your life to look during your no go years, the years that you are, this is kind of morbid, but it's near the end of your life and you're not as mobile as you used to be. And really, that's kind of the whole point of financial independence. What's the point of getting to age 95 and then quitting work when you can quit when you're 35 or 45 or 55, or continue working because you love it? That's a different story altogether.
Let's wrap it up here. To close, I have 3 final points. I'll read these off and then get your take on them if you have one.
I have one. Me have an opinion?
Surprise. Okay, but my first one is, even if your partner isn't interested in any of this financial independence stuff, heck, even if you aren't, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast, but even if you're not, there's so much value to just getting your money right. It's nice being able to have your roof leak or your it's not nice to have your roof leak or your furnace crap out in the middle of winter, which both these things have happened to us multiple times. But what is nice is when you have the money there and you don't have to sweat bullets or get rained on, because you can afford to have the thing fixed. So even if you have no interest at this time in retiring early, I think you're thinking about it wrong, but get your money right, because money is security and comfort.
Well, and you don't have to quit your job. I still work, as we talked about a few episodes ago. I like my job. I don't want to quit it right now. But also, the circumstances of our life have us geographically constrained. Isn't the right word, but it's kind of the right word. We have kids that are in school. Our oldest is a senior in high school. Our youngest is a freshman in high school. And school just started. So we've got 4 more years with a child living at home. I could quit my job and go do other things, but I like what I do, and it's not really a burden. So that's why I continue to work ultimately. But once my daughter has graduated from high school, maybe I'll reevaluate.
And my second point is to be patient. You're not going to convince your partner of this overnight. This could take a very long time, maybe even years. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I mean, there's not really anything to add. Yeah, you do need to be patient. You're coming at this probably from a position of, I have done some research and I'm interested and I want to present it to you. And if they take that information, they're like, yeah, no. That just means you haven't presented it properly. You haven't given them some ideas for them to think about that resonate with them. Or perhaps it's just not going to be. You could separate your finances where you are retired and they are not. And that's a choice that they have made. I think that's something that you need to have a real deep conversation with. Because if Carl didn't want to pursue financial independence and I had been the one to discover it, if he wanted to continue working, great. But how does that make my life look? And, frankly, we're actually the flip. Carl discovered it. Carl decided to go, he hated his job. It was so stressful to him. I don't hate my job, so I continue to work. But we have a lot of communication all the time. We talk about what we're going to do, where we're going to go, how are we going to do things. I also have a really flexible job. But this is the kind of thing that if you are just now bringing it up to your partner, they might need some time to digest it, to think about it. That doesn't mean necessarily no. If they do end up saying no, then you have a different conversation to have.
Before I get to the last point, I wonder if Mr. Pie is still working at Baker Square. If so, and if he gets in contact with you, maybe he works at whatever. Is there a successor? It was Poppin' Fresh Pies before that, remember?
Yeah, then they changed it to Baker Square. I don't know what it's called now.
I'm kind of sad. I was going to ask you to ask him to hook us up with some pies.
I haven't talked to him in like 30 years.
Well, that's good, I guess. Hopefully he doesn't ask you for money again. If he does, please talk to me first.
Yeah, I have a new philosophy on when people ask me to borrow money. No.
A side note, I've had multiple people, friends and complete strangers from the internet, ask me for money. My response is always the same. I will not give you money, but I will give you as much advice if you want. I know a lot about it, and if you listen to me and do what I say, I could probably help you right the ship. Everyone wants money. No one wants advice. 0 people have taken me up on that offer. Warp, warp. My final point is, and this one's a little sad, but we actually know someone who is in this situation. And my point is, if financial independence is really important to you, and I'll back up a second here, this isn't really about financial independence. Who cares about money? It's just a construct of value in the bank or whatever. It's a made-up idea. The point of it is what you're going to do with the money. For example, if your goal is to quit at 40 and travel around the world, that's great. But if your partner wants to make partner at the law firm, you have 2 very, very different goals in life. And it's probably going to be hard to reconcile these 2 things. And at that point, I'm sorry, but it might be time to... I personally think this would be very hard to work out because I married you because I want you to be a part of my life and I want to spend time with you and do most things with you. If you've got someone like the situation I just described, there might not be a way to fix this, and it's really an issue with neither person. You just have different goals in life, and maybe it's time to go your own separate ways.
You can email Carl at mindyonmoney.com and tell him all of your thoughts about that. I don't know that this would be a deal breaker. I think there are plenty of couples that have separate finances and separate goals and separate paths that allow themselves to stay together because they love each other. And if that's the case, great. But communication is going to be even more important in that situation. Of course, it's easier to be on the same financial page with your partner, but there's lots of different ways to approach that other than, just getting a divorce.
Well, I think that would be the point of last resort, but maybe a divorce would make both parties happier. Yeah. I think if you're watching on YouTube, the bull is agreeing with me. I'm holding my Wall Street ceramic bull model. The bull and I might be starting a new podcast soon, by the way.
Good.
Are you going to listen?
No.
What would be a good title for it?
No bull.
No bull. But yeah, that is a good name, but there is a bull.
Bull, no bull.
Okay.
No bull. The no bull bull. The no BS bull.
It's going to be great. I think the bull has a little bit more personality than me, so I think the bull is really going to bring a lot to our podcast.
Well, luckily you have me to bring the personality.
And the bull said that it will make appearances on your podcast too. Did we settle on Charlie for the name? What is the name of the bull?
Is it Charlie? Do you want to be Charlie? In honor of Charlie Munger?
We'll think about this some more. That was our good friend Rakesh's suggestion.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Rakesh, for that suggestion. Carl, you have anything else to add?
No, you can email the bull at mindyonmoney.com. And I think next week I've got a good episode for us. I think it's going to be the X number of things I wish I knew when I was 20. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's a great idea. X.
Cool.
X meaning you're going to fill in that number later?
Yes, I don't know what the number will be. 68, 70, maybe in between.
I was going to go with 14.
14, okay.
14
we'll see what it comes out to.
Well, we're going to aim for 14. If we miss, sorry. Okay,
Great.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, bye.